I hope no one calls in while I'm on the phone.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Build Your Best Life. You are watching our Blueprint for Success podcast. My name is Jocelyn Charles. I am your host for tonight, and I have a wonderful guest with us, a returning guest, Miss Kimamira Brown. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad to be here tonight.
We're so very glad that you decided to join us this evening. And to our wonderful viewers who are tuning in, thank you for being with us this evening. Please make sure you like this live or give it some hearts and make sure you share it with some loved ones. Particularly families of young men or directly with those young men and those families, because we have an awesome topic for our young men this evening. Our topic is raising kings. What gets in the way of our young men? Some of us have those questions if we have young men in our families. This platform is all about helping raise young teenage boys and young men going into adulthood to be productive members of society and to make sure that they are successful in whatever ventures they are seeking. So it doesn't matter if we're helping them and guiding them into that journey, helping them get back on track or stay on track, whatever that may look like. That's what we're about this evening. And so make sure you like and share. Again, we appreciate for you being here and we love the participation in the chat. So please make sure you participate in the chat and give us some encouragement. Give us your feedback as we go along and talk about raising kings, what gets in the way of our young men. As your host tonight, I am a mother of a young man. I'm a mother of two. I am a full time worker with a business, entrepreneur business, growing that as well part time. So I have my hands full. I know what it's like to wear many hats as a mother raising a young man, and I understand some of those challenges. So I want to make sure that you plug in and hopefully you see some of yourselves in some of the questions that we have. At the moment, we appear to be having some technical difficulties, but I'm sure Miss Kamira will be back in with us just shortly. So please just give us one moment as we take care of those difficulties, and I'll be right back with you in about 1 minute. Thank you. There we go. See, that was quick, you guys. I asked you to hold it, wasn't even 1 quick minute. I told you she'll be right back. Thank you again for your patience.
You guys, I'm having a storm over here where I am, so I do apologize. If bear with me, bear with me. I will jump back in as fast as I can.
Kamira, I agree. We're having a storm as well on my side of town. It's just what it's going on in the Dallas Fort Worth area right now. So we're holding it down in Big D. But
Hey,
we got to deal with the storm and take
look,
difficulties. Technology, you love it, and then sometimes it's like but you
exactly.
do
We're
what
gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it.
you have to have the technology in order to reach the masses. So here
Yes.
we are. Thank you again for your patience. Thank you, Kamira, for jumping back in. We appreciate you being here. So we're going to get right into it. Let's talk about raising kings. Okay. As a mother, Kamira, what do you believe is the biggest obstacle preventing young men from reaching their full potential today?
Um, I'll start with for me, I've spoken with a lot of single moms. Um, and when it comes to the lack of direction, for young men, when they have that lack of direction, um, it hinders them, um, overshadowing the practical life skills, um, and not having the ability for fitting today's eh, I want to make sure I'm saying it the right way. Um, the generational path that, back when we were growing up, there was, you had the uncles and the elder cousins that had your back. They guided the young men on which way to go, how to do things, how to prepare them for life, and gave them practical skills for it. Even though we have social media today, it's nothing like having hands on and someone there to guide you and direct you and correct you hands on. So, lack of direction is the one thing that I see today. Um, when we need those people in our lives, uh, people are there's this disconnect today. Whether it's the young men that don't want to accept the help due to their pride and egos, or it's the elders that just can't get that connection with them because it's like, hey, I'm not going to fight and struggle with you, young man,
Mhm.
and there's no direction, there's no entry mode for a lot of people. So that's where I see it at today.
Lack of direction and lack of hands-on guidance is what I heard you state in your reply to that question. And it is sad but true. In today's society, there is a lot of technology. So relationships, we have to be even more intentional to build and bond in relationships, even when it comes from like a mentor to a mentee type situation.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you would think that the older adults or the elder adults or the senior adults, we know how important it is to tune in to the young men, to the younger generation,
Right.
generation that's going to lead us when we're in retirement, when we're using that walker or maybe wearing some diapers.
Right.
But there, it seems like the effects of today's society with I'm going to do my own thing, I'm going to live my own life. Of course, young men and young adults, they go through that stage regardless of what's going on socially. They're
Hmm.
to themselves and don't necessarily want to be told what to do. But it has affected, it has spilled over and bled over to the older generation, the societal norms nowadays. And so there are a special select few that it hasn't affected, where they're willing to go the extra distance, as far as
Exactly.
senior men going the extra distance and the extra mile to get the attention and stay connected to
Yeah.
them.
And it's like we need those, like, where are they? It's like they are there. We just have to get the young men to there's a trust factor. There's like this give and take for the you want the help, you have to be willing to accept the help, and you have to respect the help.
Yeah,
When you want that direction, when you want to do something. I had there was a young man that my son grew up with, and they all grew up around in the same automotive area, so that was the thing. They hung out there in that area. And out of these, I'm going to say these five young men, out of the five, there's only two that you see that still, they go around there, and they call my son. It's like, you boys are the only ones that still come around here, and I see you guys doing great. you know
yeah,
where are the other three?
yeah.
And it wasn't that they didn't have the direction, the opportunity, is they didn't accept it. So
Okay.
for some, it's that they didn't accept it. The direction, the skills that was presented to them, they just didn't accept it. So sometimes it's that they don't lean into it.
And I know we got some other things I do want to cover with you, but this one question, this first question is just loaded. It's got my little brain
It
just.
is.
Do you believe, Kimera, that some young men, they're not as trusting or as accepting because the most important male figure in their life was absent, or they've been, or they feel a sense of betrayal because the father wasn't around? We know there are tons of single mothers um, raising sons, and so
Mhm.
feel that some of their hesitance or inability to truly connect as they transition into young adulthood could be due to the lack of the betrayal that they feel, or that void that they feel in their hearts, because that most important male figure, father figure, was absent from their lives.
Yeah, and they've had that let down. Like, I depended on you to be there. And um society, the change, there was this gap. um I'll go back to the COVID situation. There was this disconnect at that point in time where everybody started doing their own thing, and no, the bond, it just shifted. And now the young men don't know, who can I trust, who can I believe in, who can I go to for all this. They started depending on social media to tell them what to do and how to do certain things. So when it comes to going to an actual person, how do I approach this person to ask for the help?
Yeah,
Can I trust you to really give me the help that I need and actually stay in my life to do it? Like you say, there was an absent father, or my dad didn't give me exactly what I need. So can I really trust you to stay?
yeah,
Because my dad wasn't there, or I had an uncle that was there for me, and now uncle has decided to go on about his life, and he's doing what my dad did. And so it's that probability of, who's going to be the next person to let me down? Can I
yes.
trust it?
Unfortunately, that is the case for many of the young men. Thank you
Yeah.
for elaborating on that. Well, share with the audience, how can mothers balance nurturing their sons while also holding them accountable and building discipline?
Um, Setting some boundaries. Setting some boundaries. I learned with my son that a lot of things comes with teaching them accountability, consistency, and consequences. Um, I use that with either my girls or my boys, but I think more so with my son that if we don't teach, our young men that formula,
Mhm.
um, it will interrupt nurture. So you want to make sure there's a balance with the nurturing and the skill set, if that makes sense. There is discipline, and then there's nurturing, but you don't want to baby them too much to where they lose focus on uh, order, and knowing that there is consequences for their action. I'll say this: my daughter used to always say, "Don't baby him too much, mama." And I was I was the nurturing mama, like, girls, go in there and wash those dishes. And I didn't push him in the early on. I didn't push him to do as much as I had the girls do,
Mhm. Mhm.
but he watched the girls.
Yeah.
And when the girls reached a certain age, they were getting into their activities. So I had to, like, okay, now it's time for me to do this for him, because I started noticing, like, okay, he's taking the route of, you look over and he's on the sofa, and he's not as prone to, like, do it. The girls were doing, they were kind of in the kitchen, they were cooking, they were coming home and doing the chore, but he still had his things that he had to do. But I knew that I had to push him a little bit more and stop babying him, and make a difference between the nurturing and the accountability for the things that he needed to do around the house, and be consistent with the skills that I needed to apply and pour into him, like the yard work, the keeping the house clean, and all the chores and everything that had to fall in line with, you're going to be a young man sooner or later,
Yes.
and the girls are not going to be around to take care of this. So I don't want a lazy man. Nobody wants a lazy man. So if I don't teach you now, um I'm dropping the ball somewhere.
Yes.
And so it has to be order.
Yes. It's when we over nurture, or stay in that nurturing role primarily, even as
Yeah.
they get to those teenage years, it causes them more harm than good. And
Yeah.
that's just part of who we are as
Yeah.
mothers. So it's hard to snap out of it. And I know it could have been particularly even more challenging for you because your son is was your youngest.
Yes.
Okay. So he
Yeah.
was the baby. So,
He was the baby. Yeah. And it was like, I don't want him to do it because he's not going to do it right. So, girl, go up off in there and clean that up, because, hey, I want it done right the first time. But I
yes.
had to also learn that if I don't allow him to make the mistakes, then what am I teaching him? You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
he's gonna have to make the mistakes, and I'm gonna have to send him back to fix it and correct it. Otherwise, what am I teaching him for the longevity? You know, is some things you're gonna mess up on, but you're gonna have to go back and fix it. Like I said, the consequences of his mistakes and not paying attention to what you did wrong. You know, so yeah, that baby thing it was tough coming out of it. Two older girls, and now he is productive in it. And he always comes back and he tells me, I remember those Saturday mornings and waking up smelling bleach around the house. And I had this thing. I didn't go in and yell at him, girl, everybody get up. I would always go and hit the door. and they knew. You knew what the door meant, and when you smelt bleach, you knew what time it was. So they knew that the consistency, the accountability, the order, those were things that I made sure that I instilled in him, as the girls grew up and they were, branching out to do teenage things, and he was the younger one still left in the house. Making sure that I branded that in his head, Now here he is, he's 26, about to be 26 years old,
Wow.
and
Yep.
still comes home to mama sometimes.
And they will always. Exactly.
Yeah.
We talked about the absent father figure earlier, and I'm going
Mhm.
to circle back around to that. What role does an absent father or lack of one play, and how can mothers help fill the gap effectively?
Mm. For that, I would say building a strong support system. Um, I remember, like I say, we had a small group of men in our family. Um, they were older. He was with my son. He was the baby in our entire family. So I had to figure out how to fill in the gap. And, with the kids being in distance with him, they were like, oh, they're older kids. So how can I make this work for him? I had to learn how to build the support system in order to make sure that when I didn't know the answer, when I didn't know what to do for him as a young boy growing up into his teenage years and about to go into young adulthood, I had the right people in play to help me answer those questions. Um, at the time that he started his maturity, growing up off into teenage phase, I had joined Pathway of Life, and the men, it was like, God, you heard me. I needed this, and it was like they landed right in my hands. I had one that was willing to teach him. I'm gonna throw this one man out that grabbed my son by his shirt one day. John Wells. I love him dearly. And my son would always walk, and he spoke to everybody. However, my son always walked with his head tilted down, but he was a helper, he was a server. And he grabbed him one day and he said, young man, never walk with your head down, never speak to anybody with your head, always hold your head up. And that was the thing. My son, he great kid. He just would never quite look at people straight in the face. And that was a lesson that I needed help in, because I would always say, Darius, you're going to always bump into somebody. And so John helped me in that area. So like I say, getting them active in different areas so that they're always being taught somewhere. So we had one that taught him in sports, one that taught him in academics, one that taught him in, ministry skills, one that taught him. So in every area of his life, I made sure that I was planting him in the right area, and they planted into his life. So building the right support team in areas, the coaches, the uncles, the cousins that were productive, that took the time out to
Yeah.
do the things that I couldn't do for him. Um, and so I think that's the gap filler. um, I'm the nurturing, but they're the tough hand. They're the right hand of fellowship for him, and that's what we need. We need that. Like I say, you know how the uncles always say, "Stop babying that boy," and we don't want to do it, but we have to, And I had to know when to take the rein off of him. Our pastor would, be like, "Just let him go," and he had the run. I'm not going to say he had the run of the church, but I learned to just trust that he was okay in the ministry where he was helping and doing things. When it came to sports, they told me, hey, he's okay. Go sit in the car. He's okay. So building the right support team.
Absolutely. I cannot agree with you more. We're both mothers of sons, and I recognize, and parents and mothers do need to recognize when they need to tag in a mentor for their sons, because we
Yes.
can't handle it all. We can't do it all. We can raise them to be respectful, and but there's certain elements about their lives in adulthood that we cannot prepare them for because we're not men ourselves. And so
Right.
I realized when I couldn't answer some of the questions my son was, I mean, and I felt like I was a pretty straightforward mother or parent in general, and I would best answer his questions, but I could tell that I wasn't giving him enough of what he needed because he
Right.
had certain questions again and again. I said, I done answered this up this way, up, down, sideways. I don't know what else to say.
And if he's continuing to ask, and it's like, baby, I'm not answering that question right.
Yeah, and I said, no, I don't have the knowledge to answer
Yeah.
this question for him. So I had to be that link. Um,
Hmm.
and reached out to men in our church, and he also had a mentor at his school. And I let him know, I let my son know, you can reach out to A, B, or C. I gave him three men that he can reach out to ask,
Right.
where I just put my guard down. I didn't care what it revealed about me, because as a mother,
Exactly.
a lot of times mothers are afraid of the mentorship, what may
Yeah.
come about what's going on in the home or their
Yes.
actions, and so they don't encourage it. Well, move forward, let that go, and get your
Yes.
son the help and the link that they need to
Hmm.
express themselves. And it might have been one or two times I asked for some feedback from one of the mentors. They said, okay, he's fine, he's cool. And I said, okay, I'm
Yeah.
not looking for feedback no more. I know
Right.
if it's something that I need to know and something that
Yes.
I really need to keep an eye on and be concerned with, they'll let me know. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah, as mothers, we're that first link to that relationship with connecting our sons to a mentor.
Yeah. And I had to let him know, I told my son early on, I said, I don't have all the answers. I say, I didn't even have all the answers for your sisters. I went to my mom and my aunts, and, I'm still learning. And I remember telling him the same thing that I told my girls: never close your mind to learning something. If somebody tells you something, I'll stop cutting them off. And, when they're trying to tell you something, just take it, just listen, because later on down the line, that advice will help you.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those aha moments, and you're
Mhm.
going to be like, I remember such and such told me that. And then also I told them, while I'm planting these people in your life, I want you to remember that you'll never be alone, because I'm putting you around people that I trust. But if you also feel like this person isn't for you, you can come back to me and you can tell me, I don't, either you've outgrown that person, or you don't want to, you don't trust. The communication, the support. We're building something together, and it worked out pretty good. It worked out pretty good.
Oh,
We
yeah.
both learned something.
And that's the key. Even as parents, we have to acknowledge that we don't know it all, and we're going to grow and learn once
Yeah.
we come to terms to letting go. To letting
Yes. Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to our viewers and say hello to those who have tuned in lately, just recently. Thank you for tuning in to the Blueprint for Success broadcast here on Build Your Best Life. My guest is Miss Kamira Brown Goodwin, and we are talking about raising kings, what gets in the way of our young men. So we'd love to see your participation in the chat. Make sure you give us some feedback or chime in or give us your amens if we give a hit a nugget that relates to you and that you understand. And just make sure you share this with other mothers or young men. There's some young men on Facebook, or you can send them to that messenger and keep them plugged in. These topics are relative and designed for them and for parents with households with young men who are raising teenagers or young adults. They're finishing high school on their way to college, things of that nature. Someone who may have had issues, may need to get their young man back on track. This is the platform and the live that you want to plug them into. So please share, 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 and make sure you tune in and chime in on the comments. We'd love to see your interaction in the comment section. Kamira, in your experience, how does environment and peer influence shape a young man's mindset and choices?
Hmm. Um, I look at it with the good and the bad of influences. Um, Today, it's almost like the mirror effect.
Mhm.
Um, Everyone, they're either trying to sound a certain way, dress a certain way. It's all the way down to even eating a certain way. And that the environmental effect is damaging our young men, and um, they're losing their identity. And it it's so detrimental, right now, that they learn who they are. Um, I always say that if we had more men, and I know that there are a lot of men out there that are showing, they're online, and they're doing their thing, and it's one thing to do it for yourself, but they're not making the connection, um, you know, of how to do certain things, right? Um, but we have to they have we want more men to be um approachable in a more positive way versus the non-influential way, if that makes sense. um Everyone sounds good, looks good, but is it good? And the peer pressure of what this generation is going through is it's killing them, mentally. It's breaking them down. And if no one steps in to help them, then we're losing a lot of young men to what's going on today, you
Yeah.
know and I feel for a lot of this. You see on the news a lot, you see in social media where uh the I hate, so I won't say, I'm not going to say do I hate it. I hate the word influencers, but that's the word today. We need more mentors. We need more support. We need more stand-ins, more, I miss the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
um where people are there to bond with our young men, to help them break through society and societal situations. um I hope that, kind of resonates, or that helps.
It does help. And I think mothers and fathers, parents of young men who are watching can relate. Social media did a thing. It took a different spin on influencers as far as when the pandemic hit. So what I find and what I've noticed, and I think many adults have noticed, a lot of individuals use the platform to try to understandably so, as a pivot point to heal whatever was broken with them, and start their podcast and try to turn their lives around. But a lot of times
Hmm.
they're still teaching and speaking from a place of not really being healed or delivered from that yet. And
Exactly.
have are our young men and young adults in general
Mm-hmm.
listening to other individuals who they're on their journey to their healing. They're walking in their healing, right? They're trying to find their healing, and all of that is to be applauded. That's a good thing. But
Yeah.
they come to the platform with their wounds and with
Yes.
hurt and in the process of doing the work. And so
Yes.
a lot of time young adults think that's that's the proper way, or that's the person they should be listening to. And I believe when there's a void in the household,
Mm-hmm.
young children or young teenagers, young men will cling more to to their peer environment, and
Yes.
then that's that social media environment. And so they think that everything that an influencer or a TikToker says or does, they feel like it's gold.
Yes. Like
And
it's etched in stone. Like this is the way it's supposed to be. And
exactly, exactly. What are some common mistakes mothers make when trying to protect their sons that they actually hinder their growth?
mm, we're shielding them too much. Um, fixing everything that we should allow them, that we should be allowing them to do on their own. Um, I remember a phase where that was my thing. I knew it was something that I needed to allow him to grow through, but I was walking with him through it. And by the time I actually caught myself, it was like, now, if I had allowed him to do this on his own, it would have been a different effect on what he was trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
So it was us having to go back and relearn something that he could have learned the way he wanted the first time. Um, as far as shielding him, um, he needed to learn. I say sometimes you have to allow them to learn the hard way
Yeah.
in order for them to master it the right way. And my son is one of those. In our neighborhood there are they ride horses all the time, and I was that, don't let him go over there, and I tried to shield him, but I was also working all the time, but I had to release him. He's that boy, and um so as a mother, we shield them too much, and the nurturing part in us, it stops them. you
Yeah.
know it doesn't, and as they get older, they miss valid points in life that they should have acquired. By the time they're in their teenage years, they don't know how to do certain things. I'll share with a friend of mine. We worked together, and my son called, and she was, he was like, "Mom, how do I do da 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 da?" And I was like, "Just take the food out and put it in the pan and do this." And she was like, "Is your son cooking?" And I was like, "Of course." And she was like, "My son is 13 years old, and I will not allow him to be in the kitchen cooking without me being at the house." And I was like, "And that's where you're going to be mad at, in another year."
Mhm.
So when we don't teach them early on the things, the essentials,
Yes.
then it's a hindrance later on down the line. Um, Especially in this era, there are things that they need to learn because things are moving fast. It's not like how it was, back in our days. Hey, grandma had you in the kitchen at 3 and 4 years old, and
On the
you
stool,
know,
standing in the chair.
yeah, and you stood right next to her, and you learned it, and you knew what a pinch of this and a pinch of that was, and I see that, today there are a lot of parents that are teaching, the those skill sets, but then there are a lot that are hindering, though, our, especially our young men. The over They're taking from our young men. They're not pouring that into our young men and allowing them to do this, because it's still the nurturing thing that they're doing. Like, no, allow him to do that. You see the young men and they're like, I'm just going to go do me. My mama got it.
Mhm.
And before you know it, they have no mindset of doing all this, and they need it. You know, it's a struggle. They're
Yes.
struggling. And then when they really need it, once again it goes back full circle to, they don't have the male father figure in their life, the uncles, the cousins that can teach them, because here we are 2026, and those cousins and those uncles, they haven't learned it. So who's going to teach this kid? And so we have to jump onto it right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was good. Kamira, as we close this out, I want you to help the parents who are tuning in today, particularly mothers. What daily habits or principles can mothers instill to help their sons grow into responsible, confident, and purpose driven men?
um I'll put this tag on here. In today's society, uh, listen to your young men, listen to your boys, listen to your young men. They need us to hear them. Um, it create a safe space for them, um, because, and without us knowing, they don't know, how to express themselves on a positive note, and it's draining them. So I'll put that on the top part of it. But daily, encourage them to be determined. Don't give up so easily on what your passion is. They have a passion, they try it, they give up easily, and before you know it, their 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 ambition is out the door. And we need to make sure that we encourage our young men to push forward for what they want in life. Work hard. Nothing is going to be handed to you. And that's what everybody thinks. Social media is making it look like everything is going to be put in your hand and you can reach the sky's the limit. It's not that easy. And then they walk around with this failure mentality, like, I did it, but it didn't come to me that way. Teach them that you have to work hard for what you want in life. Um, Model respect, because today they lack that. They lack respect. If we if we carry ourselves with respect, our young men will know how to go out and respect others. They will, especially the young ladies, they will respect themselves. They will respect their elders. They will respect the young women that they come in contact with. Um, Assign them tasks along the way that will encourage them and motivate them to do better for themselves. Um, it's so easy for us to overlook that, because we're so used to, as parents, as moms, single moms of boys, we want to do everything for them, but we have to remember that we have to give them those daily tasks to do certain things and not do everything for them. Otherwise, we're stripping them of the adult life, the positive, the strong life that they need. So those are some of the key points that I feel that would help along the way. I know my son would say a lot of other things different, not differently, but he would tag on a whole lot of things because he said, "You always give me some great nuggets." But I think those are some of the things. I think listen is the one thing that he and I had a discussion about. So, listen, create the safe space for them, and they'll help you set out. And I think this year has been blueprint.
Mhm.
Help them with the blueprint for life.
Absolutely. I love that. That's exactly what this podcast is, the blueprint for success.
Yeah.
And as parents, that is a great part of our responsibility to make sure that we get them on the right path. And if they get off track a little bit, our responsibility is to assist them to get back on the right path
Yeah.
to that blueprint for success. You have given some great nuggets this evening, and we're so very grateful to have you back on our platform. Thank you so much for returning. Thank you to
Thank you.
good evening, Miss Catherine. Thank you for tuning in. Good evening, Brady. Thank you for tuning in and your interaction in the chat. We love and appreciate each of our viewers who tuned in this evening. Please make sure you get this live some thumbs up or some hearts, and make sure you share this with a young man or a household that has a young man living there who needs that extra support to build their best lives. So thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you join us Thursday here on the Build Your Best Life platform at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, and you have a good night.